But winter time.
Yeah.
But then last year, yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Fireplace Conversations. My name is Edla Kaumbi, and I'm the Executive Director of the NICG, Namibia Institute of Corporate Governance. This is a place where we gather every winter to discuss all things governance. We exist to improve governance in the country. And we do this through advocacy, through thought leadership, and through capacity building. And this is a place of advocacy where we tell you and hopefully build capacity as well around governance. This evening, I'm joined by Ms. Hilma Weber and Ms. Alicia Diperi, and we are Diperi. And we are talking about community and stakeholder engagement for public value. Why are we talking about stakeholder and community engagement? Because stakeholder engagement is one of the pillars in good governance as well. If you know the ISO 37000, it talks about one of the enabling principles for good governance as well, especially if we're talking about public organizations, organizations that deliver public services. It's important that we engage. But I'm not an expert. I am joined by these ladies, and I'll have them just introduce themselves briefly and their your experience or your background with stakeholder and or community engagement. Hilma, I'll start with you.
Yeah, good evening, Edla, and thank you for having me tonight here. My name is Hilma, and my previous experience has been in tourism. We have worked for many, many years and with different communities across the country. But my latest of recent experiences has been in development work. And I worked for Development Workshop Namibia. I initiated the ECD program that is focusing on early childhood development in the informal settlements across Namibia. So that's my experience with community engagement.
Ms. Alicia.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm from Argentina, so I'm not Namibian, but Namibia adopted me 7 years ago, and I'm very happy to be here as well. At the moment, I'm the president and founder of Umbrella Initiatives. This is an NGO that serves NGOs, and this has a quite interesting idea and fitting something that we didn't know that needed to be tackled. That is how to assist small NGOs, and we do engagement with them and community work with them. I'm also the president of Back to School Namibia, where we try to secure access to equitable education to kids. And I'm a member of the International Women Association of Namibia, that they do extensive work with many projects through the charity department that they have. My background is also in tourism, but now I'm finishing my PhD in food sustainability, so my career has changed a lot. But when it comes to engagement and community work, the strong point has been always in my life. I come from a family of volunteers, I would say. All my family members are volunteers, but here in Namibia, I found space to grow exponentially with a lot of people, amazing people to work with. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about engagement.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have you here. And I think it's not something that is much talked about or that people really understand the value of and how necessary it is. So maybe when we speak about public value in a Namibian context or the local context, what does that mean to each of you, and how does community trust shape that? I'll go with you again, Hilma.
Okay. So I think community engagement, and really it's about dignity and inclusion. I think that's what it means, and opportunities.
Did you say dignity?
Dignity.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is, that people are and communities are respected as equal partners in programs, in projects. And you spoke earlier about public institution. But I also think any institution, any program, any project should partner with community in a way that is at eye level, and it's not that communities are just seen as beneficiaries and not a part of, or are not taken along the journey. And I think the foundation to that as well is trust. Without it, even the best designed program on paper will collapse at some stage. But when you take people along and they are part of the solution and they feel the ownership, they have the ownership, they will protect and guard whatever it is that is that development project. There's an infrastructure being built in that community. So I think it's really meaning that people should be part of the whole process.
Lucia, I would like you to add to that. Or
Yes. From an umbrella initiatives perspective, what we have noticed, and we work hard on that, is the empowerment of the members of the community. Normally, there's a culture of giving, at least in the NGOs and the people in need, that is to demand and to give. But what we try to do is to empower. And our beneficiaries, as I said, are NGOs. So we have a program that is to give them training so they can do their job better. We don't do the job for them. We give them the tools so they can create their own impact on the society. So this is how they create public value through their channels. And I agree totally with Hilma, trust is very important, and how through trust we can keep growing and feeding the community. Without trust, basically there's nothing. And trust translates into continuation, it translates into sustainability of the project, it translates into trust from the stakeholders that make it happen for the NGOs, because NGOs rely on the volunteers that need to trust that what we are doing, it has a value for the community. There's companies or donors that need to trust that the money that is being donated or the items that are being donated are well allocated and that they are managed correctly, and transparency. So all these three elements for us are key, and the Umbrella Initiatives is not very old, it's only 1.5 years old, and it grew exponentially. Now we have 30 NGOs that are under our network, and the waiting list is 15 more. And this, for us, the secret was just to be very transparent and create trust and empowerment. So that's how public value is created for us.
So we're talking about this trust, nah? And like, what does it take to genuinely build trust? Because I mean, we talk stakeholder engagement, sometimes it's just to consult, but what does that look like practically? You know, how do you make them co-creators? Because you mentioned that earlier, that, you know, it's not just about, you know, asking them or informing them, but how do you, you know, trust is such a commodity, like such an important commodity. How do you build them? And can you maybe speak to moments where, you know, this was done tangibly? I know transparency definitely is one of the things.
And reporting back. So for us, there's nothing secret. Every single number of every single fundraiser that we do is announced publicly. We say what we did with that money, and we engage the NGOs that took part. And it's also, when it comes to serve the NGOs, these are our beneficiaries, we also need to be fair. So there has to be a rotation, and resources have to rotate equally. So we make sure that all the beneficiaries are receiving, so they don't feel that they are a number, but that they are part of the community, that they are in equal value. And we try to bring them to our eye level always. We are not above them, we are next to them, and we are working all together. And another element is to ask them what they need. Because many times we tend to, you know, you see a need and you solve it the way that you think it needs to be solved. But normally, or most of the cases, that's not how it should be solved. So what we do is every 6 months, we have an activity that is called NGOs Booster. So we invite all the NGOs that are part of our network, and we together develop topics that need to be tackled together. So they also know what we are doing, like what topics we are working. So transparency is not only about financial movements of what we fundraise and how we use it, but it's also what we do with our time and what do we do for them. So it's, we could keep talking about trust because it has so many facets.
100%. Hilma, do you want to mention that? And because I know also when you started, you talked about it's not just, you know, public entities, but, you know, everyone. So we maybe want to add to that and give examples, especially maybe from a governance perspective, or, you know, which is...
Absolutely. I think this is quite widely known and quite a lot in the media as well with private sector. For example, in tourism, where I have experience, is that you get tourism company entering a community or a conservancy area. They, with the purpose of having a joint venture business together. And obviously you get companies who goes into the communities with respect and value the community intelligence and that these communities own the resources in that communities. And they are coming in with investment to develop a tourism entity. And they get into agreement, and it has been seen over and over that those companies that goes in and are true and they respect the communities and they are transparent and they consistent to deliver on their promises, their businesses thrive, the communities thrive. They do listen to the communities. What are their needs? The community maybe want their income to go towards electrifying their area or build a school and so on. And you get those that goes in and they think they know it better. And obviously this causes that the community rebel, and rightfully so. Because, I mean, they know best what they need. And I think it's also really disrespectful, and it's not good governance that you enter an agreement with the communities, and because you don't see them as equal partners, you do not hold the side of your contract to deliver on what was promised. So, and I think this happens in with many companies, but also with government projects and NGOs. When somebody, let's say I live in Klein Windhoek, and I think I know it better what must be done in Havana, you know? So I just show up and I start doing something without consulting and understanding what do the really people need. I might think they need children's books, but maybe they first need to understand, why do I have to read to a 1-year-old? Maybe this is the knowledge they need first. So I can't just say, here are the books, start reading to your children. So I think it's really important to, like Alicia said, so the community have to say what are their needs and not the other way around.
Right. And so, like, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, there are sometimes when the realities clash, or like systems, right? Like what happens when formal structures and community realities clash? Okay, what they have in place and what's actually happening on the ground, like whether it's leadership styles or timelines or development goals. How do you navigate those tensions? And maybe you would want to speak to traditional authority versus government processes.
So I think, I mean, clashes happens everywhere, even when the best practices are followed, but obviously because we are people, right? But I think in this regard, it really can happen especially when people in community or traditional authority feel they were not spoken with, but they were spoken about. So there was something discussed and decided about them, but not with them. And they are not part of that. But I think to navigate that is to really take the people from the beginning, from the onset, that people are on board. If the government or any institution has a development project that is going into the communities, take them with. Start from the beginning. Obviously, it takes longer, and a lot of times I think investors or whoever is funding try to avoid lengthy discussions and so on. But it's just what it is. I think when you do that, you then save time and money later on, and you have trust, and you have champions that are going to be your allies in implementation. Because once the traditional authority or any local community leaders, whether it's in informal settlements or in rural area, are on your side, they then advocate and your allies in implementation, and they make sure that implementation is done.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Alicia, maybe you want to talk about community expectations versus project delivery, especially since you have such a big organization that does this.
Yeah, when we were discussing before, I was also thinking about the cases of Back to School Namibia. Back to School Namibia, it's a small NGO that is working in the Kavango region to offer access to equitable education to kids. So we provide them with uniforms, stationery, shoes, glasses, and what Hilma said about taking the people from the very beginning for the structure to survive, because you need partners. You cannot work in isolation, and this is what also Umbrella is trying to do, like break silos, because NGOs, we have a tendency to there's an application, an open application, and then I keep it for myself and I don't tell anybody, and that harms the whole environment, because if there's no applicants enough, then there's no call and so on. So we are trying to break that silo. But going back to Back to School Namibia, we when we do the deliveries, we don't come with like, hi, we have all these uniforms to give away. To whom do we give them? We first ask, what do you need to the principals and then the life skill teachers. We also give them sanitary pads to the girls because when they are menstruating, they stay home, so they lose a quarter of a year. That's terrible. If we don't ask what they need, then what's the purpose of all the logistics behind any project? So we start by asking them what they need. That helps the structure to sustain. And also, I wanted to mention about the donors and the partnership with companies, because this corporate governance is also how NGOs can partner with the private sector. And this is a topic that is a little bit complicated, I would say, because many companies tend to use the NGOs to green or marketize their social responsibility actions. And I'm more of the believer that if companies want to engage and be part of that structure of uplifting communities and engagement and empowerment, it should be a silent collaboration. It should be because they trust the NGOs that they are doing what they are doing, and they trust that the project should continue, instead of exploiting kids that need to go to school or cancer patients and so on. So this is something that also is part of the structure, on at least the civil society structure. How do we engage the private sector that has resources that we need to help people in need? So we become kind of the bridge in between those two worlds, the corporate world and the needy people, and how we can, translate that communication and make resources really impactful and not being exploitative.
Explain that a little bit more. What do you mean in terms of the explain exploitation? When you're saying, and you want them to do it silently.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit more.
I knew that I will catch your attention with that part, because we made experiences of companies wanting to donate, but then on return wanting to take pictures with people in need or with minors and bring mascots and the marketing team behind. And this, at the end of the day, is not serving necessarily the kids. Right. It's exposing them and showing that they are needy, and especially if they are sick. And then in the future, and there's also this whole topic of sharing on how we expose minors in social media. So if the donation comes hand in hand with all those requirements, then it's at the end of the day, the company is not interested on the impact that the donation will have in the community. It's more interested on how the company will look good for the eyes of society. And then it doesn't serve the purpose of the NGO, because we need to protect people in need. We don't need to expose them.
So how can they do it better? Because at the end of the day, when you're thinking corporate citizenship and governance, especially companies want to be perceived as good corporate citizens, and they want to also be perceived as that they are trustworthy. And so they want to be able to show that we are doing good things without necessarily bringing harm. So how can they do that better? How can they do what they want to do in terms of really helping the people, but also being seen as doing the right thing without exploiting?
Yeah, it's a very thin line. We have made, I don't know if I can mention companies, because I can give concrete examples. So for example, the FNCC has a space that is on rent. It's not necessarily a company, but it's a space that can be rented privately. But for activities that we do, in partnership with them, the space is given to us for free, and then we create content for the FNCC, and they collaborate with us. The Village Garden, they have the Good Food Market every month, and they invited, and we created an umbrella corner where the NGO can exhibit the products, and then the visitors that come, they can see that an NGO is having a space, but nobody's being exploited. They are creating a good image of themselves, which I think is very fair, because they give us the space, and they donate 5% of their income to different NGOs every month. And then we report what they did for the NGO. So if you see nobody's taking pictures of minors, nobody is like announcing how good we did, but it's creating spaces or covering needs that NGOs cannot cover by themselves, most of the time related with the space and finance. Or, for example, many companies also have leftover furniture that they don't need anymore, or DHPS gives away the uniforms that they don't use anymore. And we mention them all the time because it's silent in the sense that they are not putting drums here we come, the good people, but we say thank you.
Okay.
And we appreciate what they do because we want other companies to also start thinking on how they can contribute to the community. So I think this is a good practice, creating space and resources for the NGOs. I don't know if that
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I hope the corporates are listening. I don't know how one would do that, especially maybe it's something to explore even more, because I think it's easier with a market, but if you are helping the needed children, I guess it's like you said, they don't need to be there with their mascots, but we can just mention to say thank you, company so and so.
Yes, we do. We do. We take pictures and we appreciate them a lot. Because of course we need to say thank you, but it's completely different paths if you come with the idea of what the marketing purpose will be of this money versus I want to help, and this will bring me eventually has a spillover or a side effect, a marketing or a good image. But because you get the good image has a natural, organic result of your good action. So
good. Yeah. Hilma, do you want to add something to that, or do you want to comment?
Yeah. Like you say, it's tricky, but I think I understand Alicia completely. I have experienced this as well. But I must say there are also really good big corporates that do things silently that you don't necessarily see being paraded. And I think maybe those are corporates that sometimes need to be invited and talk about. So you simply, it must just be a way of doing business, period. You know? So giving back to the community, it's a way of doing business, and it's not something to parade about.
Because I think that leads into my next question about meaningful participatory governance, what that looks like in practice, what approaches we see in work. I think you've answered some of that. I don't know if there's something you want to add to that.
I think that's kind of similar what we spoke earlier about really partnership, true partnership, and not window dressing, and eye-level relationships and partnerships. It shouldn't be that we have the resources, we are powerful, you don't have resources. Those communities have resources. And if it's an NGO or a government project, they should also respect people. And I think it goes further to politicians. So if you go out there campaigning, see those people, see people at eye level, equal level, and those promises you are making, make sure that you're going to deliver on them. And not simply just talk to get the vote. You know? So
you two ladies are speaking about eye level. Expand that more, because I understand that it means considering people as equals.
Yes.
But what does that look like practically, like in terms of actual engagement? What does eye level engagement look like?
Practically, from my experience, where I have seen, I had the privilege to work with one of the best tourism company in Namibia, and when I say eye level, I mean that the moment there is, how can I say, there should be transparency, and the communities are part of the table, so they are part of the decision-making tables, and that the company or the project leader, whoever it is that is entering in negotiation or discussion with the communities, listen and really listens, and also ensuring, and not only listen to hear, but to really make sure that the concerns or the inputs of the communities are part of the decision making, and they are taken with. So there will be uncomfortability and things that are not easy to discuss or that are not suitable for the private sector because, for example, because they are there for profit, but they should be then discussed openly. And in many cases, the community understand these. So they understand that the business is there to make profit, and there will be compromises, but they should be done openly and not behind the scenes. So, and that's what I mean. I think that it equals. So
Is there something you want to add? Or?
No, I fully agree. I think we are in total agreement on the company engagement, the private sector.
Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot about private sector because of my most of my engagement were in private sector, in environmental tourism and so on, but also in development work and
Do you I'm throwing this out there. I didn't warn you, but are there organizations here who've done this eye-level thing well that you can maybe mention, or which some of the projects? I mean, the last time we had, we were talking about green hydrogen and the governance thereof, and there've been talks about how the biodiverse areas that are being exploited, and some of them say no, but they are engaging. So I don't know. Are there examples where this has been done well?
I could say so. And one company I could really proudly mention is Gondwana. I could mention that Gondwana really tries their best to ensure that they enter into partnership with communities at an equal level.
Can you maybe talk about that more? Explain what that looks like, what they have done. That
I could give one example. Obviously, I have been not part of Gondwana for many years now, but when I was part of the company, we took over one establishment in the Zambezi region. And obviously, before that, there has been another company before we came in. And obviously, the relationship was strained with the community from the previous company. And it's really just because the community felt disrespected and the agreements that were in place were not honored. And since we took over, I was human resource at the time. We went over and it's simple acts like simply greeting people. The community members were shocked to have my colleagues who didn't look like them and shaking their hands. This is simple acts like that, that treating humans to humans on an equal basis. And that also, with Gondwana, translating in business ethics and how they engage communities, at least in my experience, what I've experienced. So, yeah.
We also have, with Back to School Namibia, we also made a very good experience with Gondwana, and I think is something that we should practice more often. They also have the Back to School project that is to support the kids. They contacted Back to School Namibia to check that we were not overlapping with the schools. So to check also that we were not both going to the same school, because there's so much need that you need to make sure that all the needs are covered and not that one institution gets double. And I think this is an extra effort that really speaks well on, we are not only trying to distribute, we are trying to make sure that this is impactful and that everybody gets as much as possible. And in the same line, Berman and Brook is a silent contributor, for example. They have these shopping carts and an online application, and they make sure that every time that they give money, you get a shopping cart to buy items, they go and visit the place. And they make interviews, and they talk to the beneficiaries, and they really assess what is the card being used for, or what's going to be shopped and how it's going to be distributed. So there's also this that we spoke at the beginning of the discussion is how we engage with the beneficiaries from the very beginning. It's not like, here's the shopping cart, we take a picture and we are done as a company. It's like, what are you going to do with this money? What is the impact that it's going to have? And after 1 year, we need to review what you have done. And there's so many soup kitchens that are receiving this shopping cart that are also is a very silent contribution, and it's quite a numerous contribution if you add up all the shopping carts that they have distributed.
Alicia really likes the silent contribution thing. But speaking of impact, because you mentioned that, I mean, how do you know that? How do you maybe collect information with regards to the impact that you made? We're talking about feedback loops, like how do you close the loop to show communities that their voices have been heard, that or what they gave input made a change, or that what you're doing has impact? How do you measure impact? How do you measure impact in a way that reflects like local experiences?
Now, for this answer, I will put the hat of umbrella initiatives and talk about how we do feedback loops with the NGOs that we support, because they are our beneficiaries. So, as I said, we have this every 6 months meetings where we look for the needs that they have and we try to solve them. In the last meeting, for example, we discovered that there's a big need for support on the international business applicants for volunteers, because many volunteers, international volunteers, come here, and then the NGOs have issues with that. And this is the government that gives the visas. So what we did was to engage with the government and explain this. Like, first we gather all the information, so we close the loop and just explain how we did the whole project. We found the need. It's not something that we brought on to the table, is something that came from the discussion with the NGOs. Okay. Then the solution was to engage with the government. We did that action. The government explained us what needs to be done, and then we reported back to the NGOs. So then we close the loop basically by every time that we find a need, then we go all the way through, report all the steps that we have done, and then we come back to where we started. And when it comes to impact, another activity that we do, and is also closing the loop, or the feedback loop, is we have every 6 months also is called NGOs in the Spotlight. So all the NGOs that are very small, they have space in the stage where they can explain what they have done, and we have created like an exhibition area where 24 NGOs last time were exhibiting what they did. And of course we asked them, what was the impact that you had on this action, because it's a service that we are providing, service in the terms of an NGO, like we are creating this space to give them a voice, because many of the NGOs we work with, or for, are very small NGOs that don't have a very strong voice. They do an incredible grassroots work, but they're so busy serving 1,200 kids that need to be fed every morning, or an orphan that that has HIV and they cannot access the medication. There's so many amazing work on the ground that they don't have time to show this is what I'm doing. So we are trying to create with these NGOs in the Spotlight and space where they can talk, and they can also have an exhibition like companies do, but nobody does it for the NGOs. So we created that space, and then we asked them what happened after this effort of the NGOs in the Spotlight. And then is when we close, because we ask for feedback every time that we do an action. And many NGOs found donors, many NGOs found volunteers, and many NGOs connected with each other. So for example, in the International Women Association, noticed that PAY, the Physical Active Youth NGO, both of them in the network, umbrella network, needed sanitary pads for the girls. So in that interaction, that is the space that we have created, then this happened. And basically, we are trying to, through umbrella initiatives, we try to create a network of NGOs that can support each other in many ways. They can train each other, they can give each other resources, and we try to keep an understanding of what this network is looking like and where the things are moving from and back. And this is how we kind of get our feedback loops, and we try to improve. For example, the train, and now I finish with the feedback loop question. We have been giving training to NGOs about marketing, website development, all of them for free, with very high-ranking people that donate their time. This is another way of contributing to communities. Experts that donate their time, and they explain how to speak, how to create a website, what are the legal grounds for an NGO, how to create an NGO, etc. We have had so far 8 workshops, and we have noticed that the attendance has been diminishing. We don't know if because the topics are less relevant, or because this is something that they don't need anymore. They have received everything that they needed, and now what we do is to ask our beneficiaries again, do we continue with this, or we take another? Basically, it's a permanent communication. We cannot go give. We need to give and ask, this is what you need. Then basically, it's a permanent communication, an assessment.
Hence the loop.
That's the loop. And a permanent assessment of, is what we are doing doesn't make sense. Because at the end of the day, we are, at least in umbrella initiatives, we are all unpaid volunteers. So we are doing all our tasks, and in Back to School Namibia and most of the NGOs, especially the grassroots, we are all unpaid volunteers. So it's people that has a 9-to-5 work, or they are doing the PhD or the master or whatever, and they're putting this extra time to serve someone. So if that serving it's not impactful, then I'd rather not put the effort, right? 100%. So we are very, very keen on knowing or making sure that what we are doing makes sense. So the feedback loops like feedback information is very, very important to us.
Yeah, no, I'm glad, because I was pondering as I was listening to you, because I could hear you talk about, getting the NGOs together and having them present what it is that they do. And I was saying, what they do is sort of the outcomes of, but I think then I heard you talk about, going to the beneficiaries and asking them, because at the end of the day, that's what impact is about. It's about the one that you're doing the action for and making sure that it works, I think, So I don't know if you want to maybe add to that or give examples or,
No, I totally agree with Alicia as well. Feedback is a cycle. It doesn't stop. So it doesn't stop. And I think, I don't want to repeat, that's what I'm thinking. And in terms of impact, I think numbers, for example, numbers alone, I believe, do not give the full story. So for example, the Sheikh Dwella Foundation, Federation.
Sorry, who?
Sheikh Dwellers, for example. Or Development Workshop Namibia. So they, let's say the Sheikh Dwella build 50 houses or 100 houses, and the minister is handing them over. So we hear the number, 100 houses are handed over. But I think the full story is, who are these people that are that benefited from these houses? Who are the owners of these houses? They are mothers, single mothers. They are men and women who sell their kapana and tomatoes. So this is the full story. That is the impact. So it could also be an ECD program in the informal settlement that has been working on with parents and educators, kindergarten teachers, to understand the importance of early childhood development. And then there's a parent who goes and start borrowing children's books from the kindergarten library to go read at home. That's an impact, created by the program. That it's not just about there were library boxes handed into kindergartens, or there were teachers trained, or there were parents' workshops, but what happens after that is these small human moments that also reflect the impacts. And I think that makes a full story of an impact. And that also part of the feedback, that you realize, so this was done, this project happened, and this is the outcome. That's what happened. The feedback is that through that project, or through the Sheikh Dwella Federation, or the work they do, single mothers are able to have homes, or families are now having homes, and children are now housed.
I want to think a little bit further than that, because like I was saying, the houses are built, so that's an outcome. We have the 100 houses, but I'm trying to think where the impact maybe goes further than that. It's like we built the houses, but is the type of house, or is it where it is like what the beneficiary needed, or because say maybe now we have a house with I don't know, maybe electricity or something, but now these people aren't able to afford the electricity, so now the houses are dark anyway, or that's a dumb example, but I'm just thinking, how do you truly measure impact instead of just having the outcome? Or like you said, we donated all these books to these kids, but then maybe they don't know how to read, and so therefore, I don't know if that makes sense what I'm asking in terms of...
I have another example, for example, with development workshops, the NGO I used to work for. So they have a housing program which focuses on informal settlement and low income. So they service land, minimal servicing, and then people buy a piece of land and build their own home incrementally. So there's a story that I feel is a very touching story of a woman, Shakati, who bought a plot, started building her house, but with COVID, sadly, she passed on. Oh, no. Her daughter, who is a hairdresser in a local salon, organized her cousins and everybody, and they continued to build that house and finished it. So basically, this program, through the local authorities, the whole idea of the program is that to eliminate the informal settlements, that people buy their own land, buy their houses, in the process creating wealth for their families. So this mother although sadly she passed on, she has left a property for her family.
Right.
Yeah. So and I think with her daughter going out and getting people, relatives, to build this house and finish it, I think it's quite an impactful story that this family now has a home, a solid home, not a shack.
Right.
Whether there's electricity now or not,
Yeah.
so they will work towards getting there. So yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I think impact comes in many ways. You might not have a full-fledged services or impact or whatever you wanted, but I think it comes in many ways.
And I was thinking about whether, the actions that we are making, the actions that are, the English is going, but whatever actions we have, that they are having the intended outcome or the intended benefit that we wanted. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the house one is obvious because people don't have houses, but I'm just thinking whether it's food or shelter, whatever, that it is what we wanted to have and how we measure that. And I think one of the examples is you say to actually speak to the beneficiary to find out whether these actions that we are doing are having the needed outcome that we want. Is it satisfying them? Are they getting what we thought they should be getting?
Yeah, and I think here in Namibia the network of NGOs is amazing. There's so many NGOs, and as we say off the mics, that there's so much space for NGOs to work, to speak, and to say what's wrong and what they are doing. That is very easy to, how can I say, clear out those that are really doing work and impactful work, and those that are fading or it's not necessarily an NGO. It has a name, but it's not necessarily an NGO. And you can really see the impact. And the impact normally, there's something that you can measure because you always need to report. But what Hilma said is really what is happening in the ground. You fix a situation, there's an indicator that you can report back to the donor, but that has a much greater impact. And I think one that we don't discuss very often is the action of the volunteers. The fact of communities seeing that people is putting time there to support them, it already changes the mood in the community. There's one lady, Natasha, she's very young but very resourceful, and she feeds more than 300 kids every Saturday, and Havana Charity Foundation. And kids knock on the door. Like, she started with 2 kids, 5 kids, and then the rumor starts growing. But she manages to, every Saturday there's new volunteers. As Ilma said, they don't look like Havana people. They are white, they are from abroad, and they shake hands and they play, and that already increases the impact, because the original objective was to feed kids, and those volunteers came to cook and serve the food. But there's much more than that. There's someone sees me, someone plays with me, someone cares for me, I exist, and that I get goosebumps because that you see with almost every single project. And we also see it on upper level in between the NGOs, how they didn't know each other. The NGOs that are in the umbrella network. So at the beginning, it was all the communication via umbrella. So an NGO will communicate with us, and then we will communicate with other NGO. But we have created a platform where we communicate publicly with all of them, basically a WhatsApp group. So there's nothing behind the scenes. Everything happens there. And now, luckily, because this is what we wanted, is umbrella doesn't need to do much, because that space has been created. So the original objective was to connect them, to serve them, but now it's much more than that. Wow. They are serving each other. One example was that one of the NGOs is TB-free Namibia, so they want to eradicate tuberculosis from Namibia, and they found 3 kids that they are so scarred that they cannot use clothes, so they needed blankets. And Umbrella didn't have blankets, and she asked in the group, and another NGO that also has very few resources donated the blankets that needed to be used for the tuberculosis kit. So basically, it's from not having anything to having a lot if you share these resources. So this is what I'm trying to say is that the original impact is something that we can measure. We have 30 NGOs in our network, tick. But everything that happens after that, we have fed 300 kids, but everything else that happens after that is so much bigger. And you can really, really easily clear out those NGOs that are working for a greater purpose and those NGOs that are there just to have a name and to have a website, to pretend. So I think in terms of impact, there's much more than we see.
Right.
Much more.
Yeah. And I think that what we're getting to is because we're talking about engagement, we're talking about public and community and stakeholder engagement. And so at the end of the day, I mean, yes, we can talk about our impact, but I think at the heart of it is whether the ones that we hoping to have the impact for actually tell us that we are having impact as well. I haven't asked my audience, whether here or online, whether they have questions or comments or so, and we are almost nearing the end. Are there questions in the audience or comments? And online, Kuveri and Augusta, are there questions? No questions, no comments?
There's one stakeholder that we have not talked about and I would like to bring to the table until questions arrive, if there are any, is the volunteers. They are key. Without volunteers in the NGO environment, NGOs don't exist. And I think we should do much more to appreciate their work. Umbrella initiatives at least started with me, with a crazy idea that I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. And then I started assisting NGOs. And then nowadays we are 20 people in 1 year. So we have 20 volunteers. And all these volunteers are putting the time there, as I said. And all the NGOs that are in the network are based on volunteer work. And one thing that we need to start doing more is appreciating what they do and how many resources they manage, because they know a company, they know the beneficiary because they know the owner of that NGO or the owner of that company, and they put so many hours available for the NGOs to work. And this is something that we should appreciate more. So before we move on to something else, I wanted to make sure that we tackle those stakeholders as well.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, because stakeholders is everyone that is involved. Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. We are in our last 50 minutes, and so those of you who've just joined online, this is the Fireplace Conversations, and this is Edla, and I'm joined with Ms. Hilma and Ms. Alicia. We're talking about stakeholder engagement for public value, and so that we can know that what we're doing has impact and that it doesn't harm those who are being affected by our decisions, because good governance has to do with ethical and effective leadership, and engaging stakeholders and seeing how our decisions affect them has to do with, that's what ethics really is about. And we have these Fireplace Conversations because we advocate for good governance. And I just want to use this opportunity to talk about the fact that we are having our governance conference in October. We finally have the dates, 22 and 23 October, and we are so grateful for our sponsors. We have the Namibia Airports Company, the NWR, CRAN, and MTC and SAMNA. They are making it possible for us to have this conference and for us to be able to have cheap entry fees or low-cost entry fees. And so the early bird is already open if you want to get your ticket early. While it's still quite affordable, actually quite cheap at this point. Please contact us at info@nicg.org.na, info@nicg.org.na, and get your early bird ticket. We are having our conference 22 October at Mercure. And so as we're wrapping up, I want to get back to you ladies, and then maybe give me your wrap-up comments. Let me get them for you. I want you to tell me, okay, now my things are gone. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, I want you to give me your final thoughts with regards to, oh no, it can't open, my file is corrupt. With regards to just wrapping it up, what have we done well in terms of public stakeholder engagement and public engagement, what that looks like, what are the best practices, and what would you advise companies and other organizations in terms of doing that well? As closing thoughts, wrapping up.
What have we done well in our Namibian context? I think we have done a lot of things well. We shouldn't be hard on ourselves. But quite often, it's much easier to say, what are we not doing well? Because then there's always room for improvement, right? So I think what we should really focus on is to improve our governance in all areas, in public institutions, in companies, in government, in politicians. It's really to work with the people and not just for the people, but work with the people, and respect the people and honor your promises. So I think this is really, really important. And I would like to emphasize on especially our leaders in government. I think we also lack a lot in terms of having politicians going out and promises. I think governance should also cut through, including politicians, not just expected to be expected from private companies and NGOs and public institutions, but really everybody, that we honor the people and we respect them. Yeah,
that's good. And let's maybe unpack the words a little bit more as we wrap up as well. Like, because we're saying honor and respect, and people are thinking they are, but maybe what does that look like practically and so on? As
I'm trying. I think imagine a school, a public school or a clinic. It's build a development project. It's how can I say? It's planned and developed with the communities it serves. So I would imagine that that infrastructure will be looked after. That infrastructure will be looked after by the community because they're part of it. They own it. Yeah, because we have cases of public infrastructures or NGOs projects, buildings that can be vandalized, but it's maybe because communities were not in agreement, were not consulted, or they don't feel the value of it. But when they are consulted, they are part of it. They feel the value. They take the ownership, and they protect that project.
Do you want to add what governance practice as you conclude?
I think the one thing that I'm very positively shocked in Namibia is how much space, as I said before, the NGOs have and how generous Namibians are. We just need to ask and say, like, if you can explain what you plan to do, the government is willing to help, the private sector is willing to help, households are willing to help. So I don't know if it's something that we have, Namibia, I say we because I feel Namibian right now. I think it's something that it has been done very nicely, is this concept of generosity, and we need to take care of that generosity. The government needs to take care of that generosity. The private companies need to take care of that generosity. And what Hilma said, it really is true. Like, it's not nice when government or NGOs or private companies come for the picture. We will do this, and then nothing happens, because behind that there's a lot of expectations that are broken. And returning is very important. At the beginning of umbrella initiatives, I had an idea of assisting the kids in the oncology unit at Central Hospital. And I was planning to do the typical Christmas big action, and then one very wise doctor said, the kids need to see you often, more than you making big noise one time. And I think that applies for everybody that is needy. They need to see that we remember them, that they exist for us, and return and go back and see how it has changed, and hear again, and reshape your projects based on their needs. And I think a lot of NGOs and increasingly the government are doing that, returning, hearing and doing.
Right. No, I love that. So as we wrap up, then we're saying that, engagement looks like feedback loop. It looks like finding out whether what I'm doing has the impact that is intended. It looks like coming eye level with the people and treating them as equals, and really hearing them and not just informing them or telling them what to do, but really getting the feedback back. I'm really happy to hear this, and I'm hoping our corporates out there are listening, the big companies, so they don't just come for the pictures, but to really have the heart to to do the work because it's important and it's good for the people. If I don't have, there's a question or a comment. Yes.
There's a question online, and Mr. Elias Thomas is asking, where can the locals reach out to NGOs to volunteer?
Okay.
Like where to find the information, where to go?
I think Ms. Alicia can talk about that because you umbrella initiatives that support NGOs. So
there are many umbrella bodies for NGOs. So depending on the topic of interest, there's many NGOs. But there's a new there's plus 264 Civic 264. It has the whole list of NGOs. Then is NAMNET. That is also the umbrella of the umbrella corporate bodies of NGOs. And within umbrella we have 30 NGOs that we will be very happy to guide them to. Yeah.
Thank you.
So there are many options.
Yeah, there are options. And the idea is that we don't just, do things, but that we engage those that we are affecting. And that's not just for NGOs, but that's for every organization. Yeah, and that's all we've had time for today. And I'm really grateful that you gave us your time and your expertise to engage us. And those of you, again, if you haven't heard, we are having our conference and we're very excited and really grateful to our sponsors, Namibia Airports Company, the MTC, Sanlam, NWR, CRAN, and who haven't I mentioned? Yes, those. And we looking forward to having more of you join us and so on. And if you want to become a member, please join us as well on our social media platforms. Follow us, find us. And if you missed most of this, please... you can find it online. We're streaming, and you can find it on our YouTube channels as well. And that's all we've had time for tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you again for coming. Good night.